Welcome to Potentials. Today we journey into the sacred architecture of reality itself, the divine blueprint beneath all form. Joining me today is Mark Leib, a visionary creator and steward of sacred spaces, here to explore the alchemy of geometry, ether, and consciousness. Welcome, Mark. It's great to have you back.
Thanks, Leeja. I'm very glad to be back. I think it was last March we were together.
Yes, it's been too long, way too
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, and we tried a few times to get it done earlier in the year, but we're here now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Thank you
I'm
for
really
being here.
happy to share this because I know that like you've got sort of some knowledge and interest in this subject, and we touched a little of some of this last time. It was more like an exposition of what's possible in terms of the work, and now we're going to go into sort of more of the bit of the theory with some couple of key examples that I think people are gonna, are gonna really like.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. I know you showed me a little bit of your slides that you're going to show everyone, and the visuals are brilliant, and I really think it's going to be very helpful for everyone. So yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, we'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to share, and hopefully the technology is going to work for us.
Yay.
How are we doing? Is that looking good for
Very
you?
good. I see it. Sacred Blueprint,
Sacred
markleib.com.
Blueprint. Fantastic. Hi, everyone. So, as Liz just said, I work with sacred geometry and sacred architecture and sacred design. And I design spaces and landscapes and sacred structures. And that's based upon the ancient technology of the European tradition of building. So, what I'm going to do is talk about that in a sort of broader context and show you a couple of examples and hopefully some things you've maybe not seen before. Okay, so the sacred blueprint, as Liz said, is really the relationship between space, space time, and more locally, geometry and shape. The ether being the structure of that, and consciousness itself, the aware living being of the of at all scales, the cosmos, the planets, us, and every living form. So what I'm going to show you here is this is a project very dear to my heart. It's it's a medicine wheel, so it's a traditional form which is found in Native American tradition, but it's also found in the same shape, essentially a cross and a circle, is found in the Celtic tradition as the Celtic cross.
Yes.
And so we're on Celtic land here, and my tradition is the Celtic tradition. And
Mm.
this is a universal symbol, and we're going to go into it in a moment, of a cross within a circle. And it's an energy structure that unites geometry in terms of in terms of the shapes we can see here with the ether field via various levels of energy, plus the consciousness of the land. I'm going to show you how that all comes together in a moment. This project is about 5 minutes away from where I live in Somerset in southwest England. It's on a project which is a medicine garden. So this was built to be a centerpiece for a garden growing medicinal herbs. So it's about healing the land and healing us through this herbs and in the interaction of the space.
Wow. Cool.
So what I've done here is a little bit of an overview of some of the elements of of this structure. So there's a rectangle, these four big stones, which is a piece of solar geometry, which is central to my tradition, which is about 4,000 years old. Technology of astronomical observation and geodesic calculation, and then megalithic building from the European tradition. And so this rectangle is aligned to north, south, east, and west, and the crossing points are the solstice, sunrises, and sunsets, and the equinox. So not everything is shown here, but essentially it's a solar observatory, and it's a solar temple, And all the dimensions, the straight lines and all the circles are harmonic frequencies. So everything is built with the music of the land, built with harmonics. The center of this is a crossing point of earth energies. So it's a vortex. That's where you see the spiraling. So there's
Yeah.
one spiraling up, one down. The one that's going up is the spiraling vortex caused by the intersection of multiple earth energy lines. The one going
Mm.
down is caused and created by the geometry, which comes from the geometry of the sun. So it's the interaction between the information and the rhythms of the planets and the location. So we get this double vortex and this spiraling upwards and downwards. So okay, it's a very powerful place for connection, and it really is a sacred site in all senses. And so you can see on the left there the circle and the cross. So that symbol is a symbol of the sun. A circle with a point
Yes.
is the symbol of gold in terms of alchemy. So we have
Ah,
many, many layers here. So this structure was pretty much the foundation of all true sacred spaces in the ancient world.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How are you able to find where that was located? Like, how were you
Uh,
able to see this is where it is?
that's through dowsing, using dowsing rods, and then the body, then to feel. So I know what particular type of center I'm looking for, and there's different vortexes. So vortex basically means a spiral, and a node is the interaction at crossing point of different energy lines. So some of the people listening may have heard of ley lines, but then there are many other types of lines. And all these
Mm.
lines intersect, and the different interactions create different energy qualities. And we want ones that are going to open up the energy body and can be really positive. And so we want essentially the bigger the structure, the more energy you need. So it's a bit like taking your phone, plugging it into the wall. You need
Hmm.
enough sort of power there to connect to. And so a very big ancient site like an ancient temple site or a cathedral, they're going to have a much bigger energy point. And this is things like dragon lines and ley lines, but also underground water and fault lines. There's many layers, and we'll cover one a bit later. One of the examples a bit later on in the presentation.
I, yeah, I didn't want to jump ahead too much, but I'm curious, what is a dragon line?
So, so dragon line basically is like a river of energy. So it's undulating and it has a level of consciousness and they can move. So if you think about a dragon, so in the
Yes,
Chinese tradition, the dragons do this sort of movement,
yes,
it's like a river of energy. A river. It's like essentially
yes.
it's a technically it's an ELF, an extremely low frequency standing wave
Mm.
that can then be seen as like a river of energy. There
And
are
that's how
other grid.
creeks move too. Creeks are like that when you look at them
Yeah,
from above.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are also straight lines. There are 90-degree grids. Then there are sort of ley lines which are more like very straight. So and actually, if you visualize the caduceus, basically you've got the Ida and Pingala, the solar and lunar
Yes,
lines, male and female. Well, then there's the
yes.
neutral down the middle. A true
Wow.
ley line is that neutral. They always come with the pairs of dragon lines.
Ah,
So,
interesting.
the sort of the more regular understanding of a ley line is like a relationship between two or three or more points in the landscape, and they do exist. But
Mm.
a higher level consciousness ley line travels and will be found with pairs of dragons, male and
Wow.
female. We're going to see the very special ones in the presentation.
Interesting. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Great.
I just
No, no, please interrupt. Please. Okay. So what I've drawn here is an illustration of an experiment we did. We had five people, someone stood in the center, and then four of us were then on the cardinal directions. This structure is aligned north, south, east, and west. So the structure is aligned to true north, so it's linked with the Earth's magnetic field. And what we did was we stood in these positions as someone was in the center. After about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, then essentially an energy bubble was created from the center, and it built up and built up, and then was then pushed out and was then felt by everyone else. There was like almost a sort of like a
Wow.
shift outwards, and I'll show you. Like it sort of came outwards. So what's happening is there's this sort of spiraling
Yes.
action, and that center dotted line is that center line connecting classically called heaven and earth. But then that spiraling action, essentially, we've got these cones of energy which are spiraling torsion fields. But then when we stand there and we interact, when then our own biofields interact with it, we then have an amplification. There was an amplification because there's also the mind aspect, the consciousness aspect, where we didn't know this we didn't know what we were going to get, and this happened. Essentially, this is like a scalar field response
Yes.
where the interaction of the energy field of the structure and the energy field of the person in the center all connected together. And I'll show you another slide in a moment. And so
How did
what's
that make
happening?
you feel? How did that make you feel afterwards?
Very peaceful.
Mm.
So yeah, so these structures are very grounding. So the big geometry of the rectangles, there's like a foundation. It's a bit like building a horoscope of the land in place. So a horoscope is the relation is a map of the geometry, is the relationship between your birthplace and time and the planets. And so all the alignments, all those specific alignments that are unique to you determine whether you're a Leo or a Sagittarius.
Interesting.
The rectangle that laid out on the ground is one particular geometric relationship
Yes.
of the sun and the moon to that location. And when it's built, and when because each side is a musical frequency, so it's like so basically it's like a wave, like a guitar string. That
Right.
these stones in the four corners, this is a musical instrument and it's playing the unique music of this location. And so there's the short side, long side, and diagonal have their own frequency, and it's specific to this piece of land. But let's say we move from here to where you are in Florida, because the latitude change, the frequencies change. So when
Yes.
we build this around on the land, it then creates a very powerful sacred space because we're activating the land's own music. So it's the music of the land. It's a bit like, think about the DNA. We each have unique DNA. That's the coding of our biology, which then is informed by a higher dimensional self. And so at the point of inception, the etheric DNA is inserted into the physicality of our being, and then that creates the etheric structure in which our physical body then maps to. This is the same, but this is through musical notes. And when we build all this, we then can build these structures and then create these energy fields. And then
Mm.
the land spirits and the land accept it because we're activating the land's own DNA to create
Yeah.
balance and to heal itself. And so when we go into these structures, these can be felt and usually in the center, but in this case, in this what happened with this five people, it was a larger field effect where we're working, where the harmonics and the alignment then is enhanced by our own biofields, our consciousness, our intention to then create this torsion scalar field effect.
Yes. Awesome. I love that.
Great. Yeah. So to answer your question, we all felt really grounded and really centered afterwards. And
I
also, I was really quite shocked because that's something I haven't sort of had an experience before in the structure.
right. Was it healing? I'm gonna guess it was probably healing in some way.
Yeah, because yeah, the whole structure itself is a healing structure. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
when we go there
So
to
it
get
kind of
healed.
lines you all up. It kind of probably lined up your chakras in a way.
It's a line, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
This structure specifically opens up the throat chakra, but it will align them all. You can see that dotted line there. It is
Yes.
alignment. So in our own biofield, that alignment that comes through the perineum to the crown, well, when we're misaligned, we don't have that. So these
Yep.
structures are aligned to north, south, east, and west. So they're aligned with the magnetic field. but then because they're exactly harmonic, they're exactly like a structure playing the land's music, it's creating harmony. It's like a harmony machine. So when I build these around homes, you get to live in the music of the land, and it's like sort of a background technology that's designed to create harmony and a presence.
Harmonic resonance.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
harmonic
that's beautiful.
resonance, yeah, machine
Beautiful.
technology.
I love
Yeah,
it. That's so exciting.
yeah, it's great. So, um, I've got a slide here just to sort of an overview of that. Essentially, the geometry and the form is this archetypal shape, the circle with a cross, but there's also a standing wave field generating device. It's activated by the music, which we talked about. This instigates the effects on the etheric, which we can feel, and it can then expand our biofield. That's connected to the center point, which is the crossing of the earth energies. This is the life force of the land. So telluric means earth. So the life force of the land, the vortex points, the sort of center points of this earth energy. We then connect with it with our intention and our mind. All these things mesh together in the local ether field, and then we connect to the greater consciousness of the land, and then to the greater consciousness of the planet via the linking of the larger Earth grid. So the more of these spaces we have, the greater we can then raise our own consciousness and then that of the planet, because we're creating places of harmony, and we want more harmony in the world.
Absolutely. Wow.
So
I
so
feel like
that's
we must have had this before. That's just my guess. My gut feeling is that in the past, these must have existed around the world.
correct. They did. I have seen a statistic that showed in North America there was 100 that someone calculated there was like 120 to 150,000 medicine wheels.
Wow.
And it's a bit like in the UK, but obviously a lot of them were taken away. But then you take away, if each one of these then is a structure that's balancing the local field, and you take those away, you're going to get imbalance. It's also like
Yes.
in the UK, stone circles, like farmers take down the stones and break them up. They might not know what they're
Mm.
doing. Sometimes they're done deliberately. So this is that removal of that ancient knowledge and history, but also removing those devices that are keeping balance within the energy within the planet's energy field.
I hear it also affects the weather.
They do affect the weather. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
That's maybe we can do it on a separate call. Yeah, they do.
I
Yeah.
know I'm jumping all over the place, but it's just all these ideas and thoughts are coming to me. So
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, should we move on?
yes,
Okay.
please.
So the sort of the macro level of the work, the sacred blueprint, really that's what sacred means divine, and what's divine, all of nature, essentially the consciousness of all living beings, whether it's the planet itself or every tree and plant and all of us. And so in terms of blueprint meaning design, the design blueprint is defined by many different elements, and we can't go into them today. There's hundreds of elements. Some of the key ones. This is the platonic solids. So going from the left, fire to ether, the earth, air, fire, water, and then on the right, the dodecahedron, which is the element of ether, and an incredibly important shape
Yeah.
recognized by the Pythagoreans. On the left, we have something called the cuboctahedron, also known as the isotropic vector matrix, sort of essentially discovered by Buckminster Fuller and then utilized and developed by Nazim Haramein into the 64 grid. And he's basically, and then, and then essentially that becomes the sort of the yang um, ether lattice template, which maps exactly onto the flower of life. So that's the center of that is this. And this is a very, very, very special structure that they recognize as the sort of the tension of the etheric lattice. And so if anyone's interested in that, go and have a look at Nassim's work. But this is one of those core sacred geometry structures. Very, very special. And we're only just going to touch it now because it's, there's huge amounts there. Of course, then in the torus as well. And so all these structures interact and enable etheric fields, torsion, scalar fields to enable energy, but also consciousness to them to then move between physical planes.
Yes.
And then
And
on the left we have the golden ratio, and also the golden spiral in different conditions. On the right hand side, this is the torsion pyramid um, put together by the Russians about 30 years ago. And so essentially this is pure God. This pyramid is pure golden ratio. Has many incredible effects. We've done some results. We've done some tests on this. I think we talked about this last time, where we use this to enhance plant growth. And this is a very special pyramid which encodes that. So there are many different iterations of the blueprint. I just wanted to show a couple of those today. Now here, this is we're going to come. I'm going to come back to and explain again. Finally, the what we saw in the medicine wheel, the interaction of wave fields. So we're looking here at waveforms. Obviously, this can be acoustic. This can be etheric fields, and this is really where there's interference patterns. So constructive interference. Where our own biofields interact with each other. Whether that's the emotional level, the energetic level.
yes.
It's constantly happening. Every life form's giving off these waves, and all the
Mhm.
all the different levels. And so what happened was that when we're doing that, we have our fields going out, but then we have this inner structure. We come back to the torus. I'm sure people have seen this before. Essentially, the torus being that central structure which allows energy to fold back into itself, but also consciousness can as well. So it becomes it's an absolutely central structure to the way that any energy propagates at all scales through the universe. And so there's also a lot of amazing work done by Harmath Institute to show how the heart has its own heart field, and this is sort of there's these almost like magnetic field lines of our energy field. And then
Yes.
what I've just did this then brings us then back to the medicine wheel experiment that we had, where you can see here the different interactions between the biofields of all of us. And so what's really important here is apart from the wave fields interacting, is also to get a sense of this structure and how important this form is. And we're going to talk about some other iterations of this moving forward. You got any questions before we move on?
Oh no, I was just observing. It's just
Mm,
it's amazing to see all the Vesica Pisces you know, um images, like that, because it's almost like there's portals. You see these portals that are around us all the time, and how they kind of interact with each other.
absolutely. Yeah, they do. And so yeah, it's the vesica being that sort of interaction, the two circles, and you can see how they can form. There's a lot of classical ways that we can draw that. Again, we're not doing that today in terms of that's where the mathematics and the proportions and the ratios come into relationship. So we look at the golden ratio. There's a classical calculation of how golden ratio and vesica they all interact. So you can see the blueprint. We're talking about geometry here, and we've touched a bit on music and on proportion. It's one incredible system that was decoded by the ancient traditions, and now finally the very enlightened researchers are picking up on that, and we're gonna talk about one at the end.
And when you say the music of the land, not to interrupt, are you referring to actual music, or are you referring to just the sounds that we hear in nature?
I'm talking about actual music, actual musical notes that are generated by the relationship between the sun, the moon, and the earth. And this was a extremely high level science So very low tech, very advanced in terms of a vibrational technology, where they were
Mm.
able to recognize these sounds. So there's something called the music of the spheres,
Yes.
which was sort of coined, sort of came into the lexicon via Pythagoras, but actually Johannes Kepler in the 16th century, the astronomer, looked at the relationships between the planets and then calculated that they were in musical proportions.
Mm.
He was even able to work out then there was a planet missing and there was actually an asteroid field there, and he worked out through the harmonics. So all scales, these harmonics are deeply important to life, and the in the music of the land, those musical notes are generated by special mathematics and proportions and ratios as a result of the rhythms of the planet. So there's those constant cycles, and then interacting with the spherical geometry of the Earth, it then creates these notes. Now they're unmanifest. Only when we build with them can we recognize they're there. Now we can't hear them, we feel them. Although I've worked with clients where they're sensitive enough to recognize the elemental beings in the land, and these beings can hear it. So we feel
Hmm.
it. So something they're too low for us to hear, but they are exact musical notes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Sorry to
So
interrupt.
you would no, great. Please interrupt. So you just asked about portals. So I think this is the last slide in this first section. In the first drawing I did, it shows the dome. So the structure creates energy domes. So if you think about classical architecture, you go to an old cathedral, there's a big dome. Those domes were built in response to energy structures created by harmonic geometry and harmonic temples. And so they replicated that. So in the same way that the physical body grows into the etheric body, then these domes then are sort of replicating what happens at the etheric level. And so where there was that dome, it's actually a sphere, one half's underneath. And so this, what I've done here, I've shown here that you have the crossing point of the structure, the medicine wheel, but actually it then becomes a cosmological, one level, a cosmological diagram of the upper world and the lower worlds compared to our three-dimensional space-time. And then
Yes.
what's happening is those at the local level, these cones that exist, these cones that create this sort of spiral of geometries through the domes in this sphere. So energy likes to cohere into toruses, into spheres, and into cones. So all of these archetypal fundamental geometries enable these effects to happen. And then also you can see how the and traditional societies would have used these structures for shamanic purposes and recognized them to be the center point of the land. So sort of like the wherever wherever their community or their land was, this then creates a center point. So if you think about like a needle or a totem pole, that totem pole is representing that center point, or like the world tree or the Great Pyramid, the Mount Meru. All of these structures are imitating the connection between the upper world and the lower world. And
Yes.
then you inhabit that space, and that space with the energetics then becomes that place for you then to connect to the higher worlds, whether you're doing it through sound or community or plant medicine or any of these different other ways that you would then utilize the space with. They could be outside, or you could be in a cave, you could be in an underground structure in a hypogeum, and that's when you could then use acoustic and sound alchemy to enhance those effects as well.
Awesome.
Okay. So I'm just going to show another aspect of the blueprint, which is this. We've touched on all these elements. Classically, heaven was seen as a circle, earth was a square, and in like the Chinese tradition called heaven, man, and earth, and there's a very structured understanding of these symbols. Everyone knows this. So Da Vinci is showing us this, and he's actually showing us this is something called squaring the circle, which is a classical construction which shows that the circle and the square are equal. I'm not going to go into it now, but really what it's representing as well is that the human or archetypally the cosmic human basically inhabits the earth and we're all one. So essentially this is harking back to deep hermetic principles that that we are a cosmos, that we are that we do embody heaven on earth. But classically, it's using these key symbols. On the left here, there's an extension of that was used in classical architecture. This is called ad quadratum, basically sort of the squares, and see how they're sort of rotated and rotated, and they sort of go down, almost creating this vortex. Well,
Yeah.
this structuring was used and can be seen in traditional roofs, and lots of patterning where you have the square and the square rotated. The octagonal form basically becomes the foundation of Islamic tiling. But
Hmm.
also here on this right-hand image, which is from a French researcher, he's looking at essentially Templar constructions where in the sort of 12th to 14th century, they were really, really going very deep into this motif and then working with the energies. This actually is something called the secret cross of the Templars. We're going to come across it again in a minute. So you can see
Right.
how like all these elements were utilized at the energetic level and the symbolic level in decoration as well as in structures. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All levels. Okay.
Fascinating.
So
Oh,
just thinking about this
cymatics.
now, think about what we just saw there in terms of those structures. So ad quadratum was being used by Vitruvius, who was the inspiration for the Vitruvian Man by Da Vinci. Here we're looking at sound. We're looking at sound on plate. So most people have sort of seen these now. There's a lot of videos on YouTube showing these forms mutating from one shape to another as the frequency changes. So these were discovered in like 200 years ago by a German physicist, and so now these forms. They're sort of incredible to watch. The absolute symmetry, like these essentially these blueprints of sound which cohere into shape and form. This actually is a more modern one. This is actually a friend of mine who's got an incredible website called Harmonics of Nature, and he's actually put in some very special frequencies into a modern digital form of these plates called cymatics. This is actually by
Yes.
the World Authority on Cymatics, and this is a particular. No, I'm not going to go into the maths of this now, but his work's remarkable. Where he's looking, he's discovered an amazing system of the way that there are harmonics at the sort of planetary scale, and I'm looking at the way that it interacts with the system that I've inherited. You can see here how sound these very specific notes coheres into these incredible geometries, but also into these there's almost like etheric fields, like sort of fractal etheric fields, where you have these sort of open shapes and closed shapes. The work's quite spectacular. When you even go in here, then you start to get these crosses appearing. So it's really stunning work, and all these sort of the detail of these dots really makes us think we're looking at organic portals here.
It looks very
And
multidimensional for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I love it.
exactly. So what I want to talk about now is something called Emperor Dragons. Now you asked me about dragon lines before. So dragon
Yes.
line are these fundamental earth energy lines, and they can exist at all levels. So there are small ones everywhere, and pretty much next to all of us. Anyone who's listening, they're going to be little dragon lines on the ground, and when they meet, there's little vortexes. But then there are bigger and bigger ones as well. One of my mentors, a guy called Roy Duff, who's a master dowser, spent about 7 years researching and discovered these things. He's called them emperor dragons because they're like the biggest dragons we have in the world, and discovered that they go all around the planet, and there's a not many of them, and they move around in pairs. So we talked before about there's male and
Mm.
female. So in the UK, we have a very famous pair called the Michael and Mary lines, which goes from across the very length of the sort of the width of the country, and they move across, and where they cross, they have very powerful nodes where there are a lot of ancient sacred sites. For example, near me in Glastonbury Abbey, and
Mm.
these lines can move. Now he discovered these huge lines, which travel in pairs. You can see here there's two pairs. And when I was living in Spain several years ago, I actually went to one of the crossing points, and these pairs of lines come in. They're about 100 meters wide now. They're huge. And these pairs of lines come together 4 times a year at the equinoxes and the solstices. So again, when we think about the year as a circle, these four crossing points, and so there's this symmetry. We've just been looking at the squares and rotations. So in terms of that blueprint, moving from archetypal geometry to uh, um, planetary and spherical relationships and these lines and to time, we can see how at this level of space and time, there are and consciousness all come together within this system because these lines have been recognized to have consciousness and then can actually move and can be moved if they need to be moved. These lines are
Is this, oh, sorry.
gone.
I was just going to ask, is this connected to what you were saying earlier about the horoscope of the land and the way that works?
This is different. So
Okay.
So that system, and that was an observational geometry system that was created about 4,000 years ago in Brittany, and so that rectangular structure was created in a specific place on a specific latitude. The latitude is there because they discovered that latitude. It was exactly 2/3 of the radius. So if you take the radius at the equator at the latitude of Brittany, it was 2/3. It was 2 to 3. So they were 4,000 years ago recognizing those relationships then, and then they used that location to essentially design a system that would allow them to work with the planets and then build temples using the
Okay.
relationship between the planets and the Earth. This is different. These are just Earth energy lines
Okay.
in which were discovered, or have actually been rediscovered, and I'll explain why in a moment. They've been discovered now, which wrap all around the Earth. So these are so the art of the master builders was to connect the rhythms of the planets to the Earth energy lines to connect heaven and earth. So we want to when we connect heaven and earth, that's when we create harmony, whether it's for our home or our city or for in our community, or if we can do it within ourselves at a deep energetic level, we can stabilize that. That's when we can then achieve incredibly high levels of spiritual connection. So, so really, it's a sort of it's like a meta science. We talk this technology of harmony. Well, there are natural energy structures within the land because we're talking about consciousness and ether and the forms. And in this case, energy structures like to come into particular forms, and they like to then sort of move in pairs and then cross over and then come together, and then they separate. So 4 times a year they come into this structure. And so I was lucky enough to go and find one of these at summer solstice 3 years ago in southern Spain, at one of these crossing points,
Mhm.
and there were 144 lines there, and these big lines were 100 meters wide. So it took 3 days of dowsing to find them, to come into attunement with them, so I could recognize them. It was incredibly hard dowsing, and then to find this location, and then to find all these energy lines there. So like a massive mandala of 144 lines.
That's a very interesting number, 144.
Yeah,
I
it is
like it.
indeed. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And so yeah, maybe we can do an exhibition of that another time in terms of
yeah,
light speed and all of that. Now, what happened is Rory, who was actually a geologist, spent a lot of time and a lot of really in-depth analysis looking at the when these four lines come together, and he discovered that they actually create two toruses, one on top of each other. So
yeah.
one's below ground, one's above ground. So we've got these double energy fields, and then he discovered this particular cone shape, and I haven't got the right shape here, but it's almost more like a tapered cone going into the center of it. And I'm only briefly explaining the work here, but essentially, he was recognizing that this was creating a very similar structure to the one we talked about before. So before,
Yeah.
where in the work that I explained, when you connect heaven and earth, the planets to the location, you can then open up this connection between heaven and earth. That's then a science, this ancient science connecting with a point in the land. What Roy discovered, these lines are doing it themselves. They're just doing it naturally. Without any human interaction, without any applied science. These were lines of consciousness that came together in these archetypal came together that were then creating these archetypal geometries, which then allowed access to space time.
Is there also another one at the bottom? Like, why is there only one on the top and there's one on the
I
bottom?
think there pretty will be. He only really focused on this. There was actually more
Okay.
layers to than this, and I can provide some links to his work afterwards. We can put it in the details.
Yes.
His work
Yes.
was remarkable, where he was in southern Spain and found these churches, and there's a huge body of work to where he found this church where there were all these patterns on the ceiling, which look like cymatic patterns, showing the movements of the almost like Templar graffiti, showing these patterns that they'd seen, and then he's decoded it in terms of essentially a geometric holy grail and this sort of this cone with a cauldron and a sword. It's quite remarkable work.
Yes. I would love to see more of that. And we'll definitely put it in the description.
We will do.
Mm.
And then what I put this slide here is because I've just brought this image back, which was this is the called the Templar Secret Cross. You can see here
Hmm.
that this is the Templar's cross. Now,
Yeah.
Rory discovered that he believes that the Templars were searching for this point. So if you think about where there are churches, and then if you if you think about these energy lines and the vortex as being these power points of consciousness, and then if you locate them, and let's say there was an ancient temple site there, and you put your church on top of there, you control that land, you can then control the energy point, and you can then
Yeah.
basically utilize that point to enhance your structure, but also give you sort of a level of spiritual control across the land. And
Yes.
so he believes that the Templars were searching for this point, but it wasn't in one place. From where it is now is different to where it was 1,000 years ago.
So the energies have shifted since then.
They move, yeah.
Mm.
They actually
Also,
they move continuously, not even from then to now. They move continuously. So this crossing form that they're in now, as we see in this in the image, they do that 4 times a year, and after that they separate. And
okay.
also over the last couple of years, in the last 8 or 9 years since they've been discovered, they've been getting bigger as well, which is to do with the Earth's magnetic field changes, and also the where the Earth is in terms of the photon belt. There's a lot of reasons for this, and the way his thesis of how these are being created and relating to energy from the center of the universe.
Has,
There's a
has
lot of yeah.
hasn't the pole shifted slightly since then too?
Correct. That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of factors. And
Right.
so they're almost like these pairs of consciousness, and these huge lines they wrap all the way around the earth. So for example, two of these lines come from from across the Mediterranean. One of them, and they sort of cross at Mount Kailash, then separate and come through the Mediterranean, through Mallorca and Ibiza, into Murcia in southeast Spain, and then out the other side across the Atlantic into America. And there's another pair that come down from France and then down into Africa. So these are
Mm.
quite remarkable, like trans-global consciousness channels of energy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what's interesting here you can see then is that this is actually from a cover of a book that I discovered this year called the by a French researcher who's actually trained with part of the French tradition and done a lot of research. And the title of this book was actually called The Templar Secret Cross. Now you can see it's
Mm.
actually a different form to this, which is this sort of standard form, but actually
Yes.
this shape here is almost a bit like four goblets together. And actually the cone you're asking about is a bit more like that. It's a bit more like this. So so
Mm-hmm.
so the Templars were doing a lot of work to recognize this, and I think there's more to be done about this. And I think you can see how they were starting to recognize this. The angle of this is there for a particular reason. These are more arbitrary because I've been showing this graphically, and they do change. But what's important is that they're making a cross because
Mm-hmm.
when, as I said before, when the lines cross, they create the vortex. So in the background is the vortex. So it's the crossing of lines that creates spiraling. When you create spiraling, you create torsion. When you create torsion and scalar fields, then you can have access points, or you can use the energy.
I was going to ask earlier if we have diagonal lines as well, is just rather than just up and down, do we also have diagonal ones?
Um, in the energy lines,
Yes.
yeah, there can be many. Yeah, there can be many directions. So what happens is that what usually we find is that if there's an energy point, there's lots of lines there. We come along and then put an energy structure on top of there. The lines and it's aligned to north, south, east, and west. And then the energy lines start to line up. They start to go, oh, okay, this feels much better, and they start to click into place like that.
I see
So
that.
they're
Yeah,
locking
I see that.
because the structure's connected to the magnetic field and magnetic field lines. And so they just go, oh, that just feels really good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I'm gonna just relate a story here, which is I'm gonna bring this sort of back to the human level. So this is sort of my own experience in terms of energetics and the reason why I'm here, which is I used to do martial arts, and so Taoism, probably everyone knows about this, or Taoism. There's a sort of the essentially it's like the yogi and sort of energetic and yogic tradition of ancient China. And so I studied something called Neigong, and so Nei means internal, and Gong is like Kung, like Gung Fu and Kung Fu is the same thing. So basically, so it's like internal skill. It's a bit like the closest might be Kundalini Yoga in a way, I would say, where you're working with the breath and the energy channels. It's just within the Chinese system, you're working with uh, the you're not working with the chakra system. And essentially, through doing this practice, I opened channels up, a channel, and this allowed me, and there was a change in my consciousness. So that there was working with a very particular form in the body. This created energetic effects with using chi, and that then created the change. And that was my awakening experience. You know, it wasn't through plant medicine or it was through this energetic. That's why I'm so sort of invested in looking at the way that subtle energy moves through space and through structures and how we interact in those different ways. And I'm sort of I'm doing quite a lot of that training again now, and for a number of years I've been looking at there's something called internal alchemy. So most people may know what alchemy is, physical alchemy. That's where you take materials, you take sort of lead, make it into gold. So that's essentially we working with the material things, then applying forces and energy and etheric fields and then applying different processes to change to change its state. Now, within Taoist internal alchemy, the same processes occur, and that is, but instead of using material things, using energy fields, you're using the body to create the change.
Yes.
And yeah, I can't see you, but I think you're still there.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm still
Okay.
here. I was wondering also because I think that I have also been involved with energy with qigong.
Hmm.
I've been involved with qigong for many years now, and so I really feel what you're saying about experiencing it in that way in an energetic form. Um, People talk about having a kundalini experience, but you can also have a very similar experience with energy by using different types of energy. Yours is a little slightly different, but qigong is very similar, I would think, to what you're referring to.
Well, Qigong is sort of part of Neigong, really. It's like the next step.
Ah,
But
okay.
Qigong is sort of where you're working with the breath. Neigong is much more in depth of rotating qi through different channels to then activate the channels. It's a bit like it's more, I guess it can be more tantric in that way. Um,
Ah,
and it then becomes a precursor to the alchemical practices.
I see.
Yeah. And so what I was saying is that the Taoist alchemical practices are really very advanced methods for understanding the energy field and with a very deep understanding of the body's geometries and these different fields. And they have, instead of working with chakras, they have dantians. And so there's one sort of in the lower belly, which is sort of similar to the hara in Japanese traditions. And this structure can be thought of as a cauldron. And so the internal alchemy they use is really very complex. I'm not going to get into detail now, but essentially, um, one of the principles is that you build this spherical container, and then it becomes essentially a factory of chi, and then it then drives many processes. And once you build that, you can then do create lots of circulations of energy in the body and get incredibly healthy. And you can then start to put energy in, pack chi into the bones and do many things. Like the sort of essentially, it's the mechanics of immortality through the Taoist system. And one of the key things is that this lower field, this circular field, has sort of geometrically you can think of it as a point within a circle. We've seen this an awful lot, and this is the sort of most fundamental structure we see in all sacred sites, all sacred architecture, artwork, and a point within a circle is the alchemical symbol for gold, and also relates to the sun. So you can almost think like they're building within internal alchemy like an inner sun, like this energy field. And so a couple of years ago, I was looking at this and I thought, well, it sort of sounds a bit like as a cold fusion reactor, like this sort of in your belly, because the things that you can achieve with it are just remarkable. And then last year, I came across the work of this this researcher, which I don't, some of the viewers may have seen him before. So he's an English researcher and is quite remarkable. And so he's a specialist in low energy nuclear reactions, and has runs a project called the Martin Fleischer Memorial Project, which is a remarkable open source project where they're sharing all their research to be able to bring awareness to essentially very close work. And really, what it is they're having he's having incredible breakthroughs, because this different groups are sharing information. They're able to move forward and actually what's happened is he's discovered that, I think in the, discovered when he's been given a lot of information, that there's information that we should all, that humanity should have, and has been available to create really room temperature energy, as opposed to being contained by the sort of the big power and the big oil and all of these atrocious entities, which are basically keeping people in sort of slavery to do power. And
Exactly.
so his work is incredibly important, and he's also been consulting on the thunderstorm generator for Mark Bendel. Some people might have seen that as well. So really remarkably, incredibly important sciences and technologies that are really have the potential to change how it change so many things for the better in the world. Um, he's developed something called the fractal toroidal moment. Sounds very complex, but basically to do with a torus. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm just want to move on in a moment. But really, it's to say that he's developed some work by some remarkable Russian researchers from the 60s who discovered this. Essentially, it's a torus in a torus in a torus. So these are sort of, we talked about toruses before today, and sort of the importance of spheres and circles. But essentially, it's a structure that he's then developed into this model here, and you can see how we've got spheres and toruses and cones. And what's remarkable is that he's also done, as well as being a genius with the low energy engineering, he's also looked at a lot of the ancient science as well, looked at a lot of the ancient structures, and has taken a lot of his inspiration and intuitive insights from the ancient structures. He's talking about yin and yang and many things, and a lot of things that we've talked about today. He's even looked at the Templar cross and found basically drawing to design blueprints of remarkable structure on many ancient sites. So he's done incredible work that really overlaps and really is remarkable, because he's also then done lots of experiments at a sort of at very small scale, and they've seen these effects happening. So his work's really remarkable. And so I put these pages in because what happened is that about a number of years ago, I said this insight that, like, the energy field within the body, within this system, is, I think, is the same thing. Now I've not spoken about this yet, but I think really what we're seeing here is that within the body we have this potential to create this plasma field, because this is what, he's working with plasma and plasmoid. So if you think about Birkeland currents, which are which are sort of like ropes of plasma and electrons, which basically bring these charge fields through the solar system, and then come into the planets, and creating or being part of the other energy body, which is giving us things like the northern lights. So really, we've got this plasma fields at all levels, and also you can think about the energy body and these energy structures as plasma fields as well. They really are. And so his work is showing how these plasma fields called ball lightning really are basically forming. And it's really, I think it's been something that's been held and understood probably by military projects, because they don't want conventional science to know about them. And I think that's why his work is so important in showing how we can harness them for really stable energy. But what I believe we're seeing here is that with in the ancient systems of understanding the alchemy in the body, as opposed to sort of the alchemy where, like, Malcolm Bendel's and thunderstorm generator really is an alchemical cauldron, creating incredible effects as well. That we have another one of these structures that's 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 conforming to these the principles of the sacred blueprint. So I think that, like, we're at an incredible time now where all of these technologies, these new technologies, are really starting to uh, 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 overlap exactly with all of the findings of the ancient traditions. And I think that might be the last slide. There's a couple more, but I think I think the last one is just there might be a summing up one. Here we go. That's it. So really,
Mm.
it's like I think it's really important for us to understand that like we're all part of this a massive wave field, and which is consciousness itself. We can interact with it with our own bodies, recognize that the consciousness and the structures are global, but also then that they really do cohere and in really formal ways, and we can go and interact with them in nature. So the Roy Duff's work, they've created a site, and we'll link it as well, called the Sacred Network. They're getting people to go out into sacred sites all around the world where they discover these points, and people are coming together in groups and then really having incredible experiences together in these sacred sites. So they've got hundreds of groups around the world now, and they're posting as they're finding new sites. They're putting them online. I think it's really important that the more that we recognize that these structures are there, that all of these sites are part of the Earth's energy body and the Earth's consciousness body, and that if we interact with them, we're going to really enhance our own consciousness, our own health and vitality, and that of the planet as well. And I think it's really important to recognize that the consciousness is there within all of these systems, whether it's an ancient site or whether it's this the sort of the way that these sort of toruses work at a subquantum scale, or whether these energy lines move around the planet. They're all being moved they're all part of this huge blueprint of sort of divine energy and consciousness.
Wow, beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that information. I feel like we are really at an important kind of crossroads or important period of time uh, where things are coming together, like you were saying. Like connections are being made, uh, understanding is becoming more um, it's out there. We're putting this information out there. People are getting it, and it's going to be more pervasive, I feel like, as time goes on, as time unfolds, and hopefully the suppression that's been that all of this information has been suppressed for so long, and in certain ways, and just in other ways we just lost it, but it's coming back, and we're refinding it, we're rediscovering it, and we're able to connect with it in a real way. And like you're saying, going out into the land with these groups, I think is a brilliant idea. It's really a good way to connect to the land again and to each other, and have our biofields um, purified and cleansed. Because I feel like we are, because of a lot of the things that are in, you know, a lot of the toxins and a lot of the uh, you know, uh, electronic smog or whatever you want to call it that we subject to constantly every day. Um, when you go out into the land, you're able to purify that again. You're able to cleanse yourself and purify yourself and your biofield of those the pollutants. And then when we come together and do that together, it makes it even stronger. So I feel like this is very important.
Yeah,
And thank you for sharing all of this with us.
my pleasure. I've actually got two more slides in just to follow on from what you said.
Yes,
This is
please.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's just exactly what you said, or what we need to do. I think like there's if people can't get to sacred sites, then
Mm,
a really powerful way to interact with these energies is go into the forest, go to a park, and wherever there's a circle of trees, go and find the center. You're going to then
mm,
find a really powerful point. Because we talked
yeah.
about circles a lot, and basically a circle of trees, you've got a circle of incredibly powerful beings and biofields. So that's one way, and the other way is just hug a tree.
Yes.
Actually, it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's an incredible practice. And if you go and ask a tree, and with reverence, they have incredible biofields. And so, we all need that grounding, and you find a big mature tree, and going in
Yes.
a hug or sit and connect with the field, you're going to feel incredible. Take your shoes off and ground and earth as well. Yeah, you're going to have just have an amazing time.
There's like a stigma attached to that. Like people, so many people are like, I don't want to be a tree hugger. I don't want somebody to see me hug a tree. I am in an office park where I have these huge, gigantic oak trees all around me. And if you can't, if you're worried about it, like I'm not really worried, but if you are, just lean up against the tree. Stand,
Just sit.
I mean,
That's
ask
it.
permission to, I don't
That's
just,
it.
I get to know the tree a little bit first,
Yeah.
don't get too, but like, I am very conscious of that, and you can be. So just like maybe just lean up against with your back against the tree.
That. Yeah.
You'll get the same effect. And nobody's going to think that's, who cares if they think it's weird anyway. But I'm just saying there's a stigma attached to it, unfortunately. And if you're in an
Yeah.
office park and you're around electronics all day, you're working in an office, you're going to feel kind of crappy for,
Yeah.
you need to get out. And if you're feeling like you just, you're not feeling good, low energy, whatever, instead of having that cup of coffee, just go out, lean up against a tree. You will feel so good. You won't need
Yeah.
that cup of coffee. I'm just telling you. Just try
100%.
that.
Yeah. Completely. Completely. Yeah, it's gonna help. What I'm gonna do is I'm just I'm gonna stop sharing in a second. But what I want to do is just want to tell people there's I mean it's interesting we've got onto this now as well because we're talking about the blueprint, but there's um utilizing trees and being as healthy as you can. It's fine. We talk about this, all these incredible sites, but I think it's really important for us to recognize that we want to, you talked about, Wi-Fi and electronics and sleep. That we'll put this. I've got a thing here. I've just created a free training about sleep and how to enhance the sleep spaces. So really, it's
Yeah.
just it's really rooted in everything we've been talking about in terms of connecting the Earth magnetic field and sunlight and all these things. So I don't think there's trees in there. That's why I put the trees in. Because it's really, I really want people to get outside and really connect with nature. Because as I said, really, we talked about sort of, quite a lot of geometry and alchemy and all these things, but really, the sacred blueprint is nature itself. And if we can, if we can really make our homes into this sort of higher vibration spaces, we're going to sleep better and we're going to have better health. Because really, there's, as you said, there's so many reasons. There's so many frequencies that are going to stop. And so I think this is really, everything we've looked at, whether it's the energy lines or these structures, they're all natural fields, and then they're things that should be making us better. And there's too many. If you're in an office and you're with Wi-Fi, go and go and sit under the tree, and then in this training, it's just going to help you to be able to sort of sleep better and allow you to sort of connect with nature better. So yeah,
There's just so many things that you can do, that like little life hacks. And that's what, like, you may have a lot of electronics in your house. You go to the office, you come home and you're still feeling crappy. One of the things that I've done is just, I don't have any electronics in my bedroom at all. No electronics in my bedroom, so that it keeps me, I can sleep better. I've put all cotton sheets on my bed, all cotton, a cotton blanket, a cotton quilt,
yeah,
only natural materials. It just sleeps so much better.
yeah,
Just
hundred
things like
percent.
that, just little life hacks.
Yeah, there's so in this, if people are interested, there's lots of those hacks in there, and we talk about earth energies and the impact it can have on your sleep, geopathic stress. So we go into a lot more detail. Really, I've sort of we talked today about how these energies were used classically, in creating high-powered sacred spaces, but how now these lines are being found again for us to use them again. And we've also talked about sort of, at the really cutting edge of how there's the possibility of actually using, really making a fundamental change, in energetics, so we can get away from all of the, get away from the reliance on some of these AC fields that are really just not biocompatible. So I think absolutely right, and I think that all of all of that's important, but really it's how does it impact us? And really it's natural sheets and not having the Wi-Fi and actually get out of nature. This is the important thing. The sacred blueprint is nature itself. And the more we can do that, the more we can recognize that, the better lives we're going to have.
Absolutely. Can't agree with you more. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Was that everything, or do you have anything else to share with us? I don't
That's
want to cut you
everything.
off. Oh,
That's everything.
awesome. Great. Well, thank you again for coming back. I really do appreciate this. I was really looking forward to this. You didn't disappoint. And I wasn't expecting you to anyway, but it's just it's just so much beautiful information and I'm just so happy and that you're sharing this free, like it's a free training. Like who does that, you know? That's so cool. And I
No,
just thank you. I'm very grateful to you for that and for coming on and just letting us know about all of this.
it's been an
Um
absolute pleasure talking to you again. Yeah, it's
yes,
yeah. And I think we chatted before
same.
as well. We're gonna about dowsing. So there's lots more
Yeah,
topics we can get into and share. I think that's really a great topic that we can go into
absolutely.
more and give people information about.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So yes, that wraps it up for today, and I hope that it was helpful to you. And if you can, please subscribe and just put something in the comments and share it with your friends. Let them know about this because I think it's going to be very helpful to everyone. And again, thank you for watching Potentials, and we will see you again
And
next time.
and
Oh,
I'll put all the links in. So when links we talked about, we'll
yes,
put in the comments for people just to get in contact with if they're
absolutely.
the Sacred Network and some of the other things we talked about.
Yes, they'll all be in the description. So please check it out, and all the links will be there for you. And we'll see you next time. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone. Bye.